Thank you, Coach J.J. James, for joining me today. Coach J.J. James is a coach down in the great state of Texas. Coach, if you don't mind giving coaches who don't know you kind of a little bit background about where you are and how you kind of got there.
Sure, no problem. Let me see here. It's been a long time. I'm going into my 15th year of coaching and teaching. I actually started off at a private school my first couple of years, and then I went to public school in San Antonio, Texas. I'm from Houston originally, but I grew up here in San Antonio. Let me see here. I'm going to say this because my wife is driving right now. So I have a great wife. We've been married for about 9 years. We have 3 kids together. And 2 of them are with us. But we have from 15, going to be a sophomore in high school, and he's a football player. That's all he really plays. And then my daughter's 4, and my son's 10 months. And right now we just work on words like touchdown. If he says touchdown, it'll be a victory for me. And let me see here. I started off in Southwest ISD and Southwest High School here in San Antonio, Texas. I then quickly kind of became an offense coordinator in New Braunfels, Texas, at Canyon High School. Then I went back to Southwest. I ended up getting married right around that time, and my wife she used to work there. That's how we met, Southwest. And so we wound up getting married. She got a job in that district, so I was commuting. So anyway, I went back to Southwest, got a head coaching job. Took a leap of faith. Probably should have done that, but I did. So after Southwest, I went and got a head coaching job after that happened, and actually ended up going right back to Southwest because my old mentor was like, "Hey, I'm back. Want you back at Southwest." So I was there 3 different times. So and then after that, I went to Northside ISD, which is where I went to high school, which is one of the biggest school districts in the state of Texas. So everybody hears about Houston and Dallas. I know Northside's working on building a 12 high school, so it's definitely a big school district. And so I went there, but I was there for 1 year. I was like, when a coach tells himself, I'm going to hang out and be here for like 3, 4, 5 years, wait for a better opportunity. Well, 1 year later, I had a coach talk me out of that job and go back to being an offense coordinator, assistant head football coach here in San Antonio at Sam Houston High School, and everything was going great. And the wheels kind of fell off over there. We had players kind of get in trouble, get kicked off the team. I went from having a quarterback look like Vince Young to a 5'7" freshman. So that's a big jump. And some other things happened. So anyway, then my boss ended up getting reassigned, and I found myself right back in Northside ISD in San Antonio after 1 year. So I've done a couple of 1-year stops, which I've never done, but I've done that here in the last 3 or 4 years. And so now I know it's kind of blasphemy for offensive guys. That's what I normally am. But I'm coaching defense. When I coach linebackers at a great high school, I actually took the job because, get this, I taught English this whole time. Except for my first 2 years in coaching, apparently I became a good English teacher, so they never wanted to take me out. And they put me in tested English too, so I'm probably sure I was the only offensive coordinator, assistant head football coach, English teacher in the state of Texas. And on top of that, head track coach. So it was rough. And these are like big schools. These are 6A schools. So it's not like, 3 or 2A. These are 6A schools, 6 schools. So now I'm at another 6A school, coaching linebackers, and I took this job because mainly my wife and I were happy because I'll be teaching health. That's what I'm supposed to teach. So that's what I'm doing right now. And other than that, I've been jumping on this whole social media thing. This is new to me for the last 3 or 4 years. I've normally been a go-to-clinic person, talk to a whole bunch of people that I've heard about, know about, that run good offense, or just somebody that's having or talking to a whole bunch of guys in a room, and I'll walk in there and see what they're talking about. And so now this whole Twitter thing, I joined the surface-to-air system with Rich Hargett. I feel like, I want to get better at throwing the ball and see what the new things are, and he's a pretty intelligent guy. So that has kind of connected me with other people who want to talk about running the football in general, whatever, and then here we are. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Well, speaking of kind of the clinic stuff, that's kind of how I found you. And we talked a little bit before we came on. I've kind of gotten into a weird fascination with duo lately. and you were on that duo clinic. Who was it for? Like Team Extreme, or I don't even remember who it was for. Um, but and unfortunately I wasn't able to get through it for this whole interview. But kind of let's start with just why duo. Why did you run duo? What advantages did you think it gave you?
Right. Well, especially now, I mean, any good offensive coordinator, offensive coach, we're gonna go sit and at these clinics we go sit in these defensive meetings, right? The defensive guys always say they do it because they're always trying to get a step ahead. Well, offensive guys, we do it too. So I want to know. I think the new thing for defense right now, and maybe I'm giving something away. I hope these guys in Ohio don't start doing it to you and you come back get mad at me. But a lot of things they're doing here in Texas, these guys are always at other clinics and talking to college coaches is they're playing coverages that I'm like, what? How can you do that? You know, but they're just getting smarter. Where if they're a 4-2-5 guy, they line up in the odd front and take that extra guy and do something different with him. And then you're like, what's going on? So it just kind of breaks all the rules of what you're trying to do. And so I know a lot of people's answer is tempo and doing all this kind of things. And so sometimes that does work, but my whole fascination has been, duo came about because we kind of actually stumbled onto it while I was at Southwest. We didn't call it duo. We just basically faced this team here in San Antonio. They had this great team. There's a guy in the NFL. He played at Brennan High School here in San Antonio, and they had the best high school defense that, I mean, if you think of the Chicago Bears of '85 defense, that was like their defense in high school. Like they were everywhere were like Division I athletes. I was like, what? And all of our guys, we're at the Southwest at that time. They were like 86% Hispanic population. We had some big, like the strong boys, but nobody really over 6 foot. These guys were just spectacular. And I was like, hey, if we run power, they're going to see that guard pull and they're going to trigger and they can gap exchange and do all these things to stop us because they were better. And so we kind of put our heads together and we were like, well, what if we don't pull anybody? What if we put more guys on the line of scrimmage because we don't feel confident throwing the ball really? And what if we just don't pull anybody and just play side gap on the backside and block down on the play side? And we still lost. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it kept us in the game and kept it from being embarrassing. You know what I mean? And because they couldn't figure out which way we were running, what we were doing, they couldn't get a lock on us. So that kind of helped. So I kind of had that already in my bag of tricks. And then I went to a Lone Star clinic in College Station, Texas, up by A&M, and I met a coach who had just won a state championship in 2017 at Baylor High School, the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator. He's the guy that I kind of give credit to learning duo from because he sat down with a piece of paper. Coach Giannis, he was on that duo clinic as well with the team stream. I brought him on. Well, to me, that's where I got all my stuff from. He said he got it from the guys at Baylor, and I went down and talked to the guys at Baylor. And anyway, he started talking to me about duo, and I'm like, hey, I kind of done that. And anytime you can get away from giving defense cues where guards are pulling and linemen are keying on your fullback, things like that, well, I'm all about that. So that's kind of where it's kind of gone from there. And he has his rules, 3 guys on one side, that's the only way to run it. But I've kind of evolved it from there, and I was dabbling with it, and I had some things going the right way for me at Sam Houston. And then, since now I'm not coaching offense, I'm kind of had to shelve some of those things. But that's kind of a little bit about how I got going on duo.
Now, like the other thing you guys kind of talked about in there is that what was it? The Gallop technique for the offensive line. Why? I mean, a couple things. One, why do you think that's so effective? And two, you got. I mean, I think all of you mentioned how it's good for zone and gap schemes. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think because oftentimes when I'm a closet offensive line coach, even though I've normally worked with skill positions like running back. When I first came up, we ran like a 3 running back system. So 2 of the running backs were blockers, and 1 was a tailback. So I was over there, and we spent so much time talking to those old linemen about their eyes and then where they're leading their block, and watch the linebacker when you're on the combo. And it just kind of stuck out to me like it's really unnatural. You know what I mean? Because you're telling him we're going to combo this 3 technique or this 1 or this nose shade or whatever, but your gap is really right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we want you to go this way, but we want you to keep your eyes over here. And so their hips were turning. It just became unnatural. So when you talk about the Gallop technique and how I learned it, Coach Honest talked to me, and then I went to Baylor and those guys. I know people do it differently, but when you come out of that stance, once you know who the Galloper is, he needs to come out there and his first punch is to like knock that defensive lineman like he's knocking a door off the hinge. He's gonna hit him, and he's doing that kind of. Some people call it like a shiver or whatever, but that's his whole goal. And then the other offensive lineman who's on that double team, he's trying to overtake that block. So you're banging that guy, and then you're up into him galloping, and with that Gallop technique, with that foot in the crotch and your inside arm on him, and you're galloping up the field, well, you're naturally keeping your shoulders square and your eyes up the field. So guess what? You pick up if you're either driving that guy in the linebacker's lap, or if he tries to come in that gap, you're already in a position to pick him up more naturally. So it just makes sense.
Now, I want to go back real quick to, you talked, briefly about the 3-to-1 side, and and you mentioned your clinic how, here I'll rewind a little bit. A lot of people say duo is mostly a pistol and under center play because it gives the running back plenty of time to read, etc. You kind of morphed it more into offset shotgun, and not necessarily were you able to do that because of the RPOs? Why did you find it more advantageous for you to run it more out of shotgun than pistol or under center?
Well, because when I started doing the service to air stuff system and learning things from Rich Hargett, and I'd already read tons of his books over the years, never met the guy, didn't even realize that he was the author of all those books I had read for the RPOs that I bought and that I spend my secret coach stash money I keep away from my wife, that she knows about now. But so you start looking at that RPOs and reading, and I said, well, that looks really nasty. Like you have power read, you have zone read, you're reading off everything. So I'm like, well, why can't you read duo? Like, I know I don't want to force anything, but I'm like, if that's the extra guy, and I've got either an inline tight end or an offset, tight end or H-back or something there, and he's supposed to block that gap because duo essentially that third guy, someone has to be responsible for that other C gap. You know what I'm saying? On the backside, you got the tackle, but on the play side, someone's got to be responsible. So what teams do is they just put that third lineman there or that offset guy, and he becomes like another inline blocker. Where I said, well, why can't we send him and arc him out to the alley or to the next defender and read that guy? And then, so I started trying it. And because of how teams were lining up against us in the stack or the other defenses, and man, it just kind of was like, wow. So then I was like, okay, well, you can do it in a pistol. Under center, of course, you can't read. So then I started experimenting with, shotgun, right? Offset shotgun, side shotgun, doing those things. And I think a lot of people are like, duo's a gap scheme. I get it. But when duo was first explained to me, when I heard from Coach Giannis, I started thinking, yeah, up front, because of the double teams, but you want those double teams to move vertically, and that's why you have the Gallup set, right? I know sometimes in power, they'll move a little bit, they move vertical, but they want horizontal push, right? Like if you combo with 3 because there's nobody to block down to, you guys want to combo back to the backside backer. Well, in duo, it's really just a vertical push, straight back into the nearest linebacker. So when all that stuff started happening, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to combo this 3 and I'm going to combo the 1 in the nose, and here's this other C-gap player that's not accounted for, well, I don't want to block him. I want to pull the ball. It's powerful because the defenses are playing there, so why can't I arc that guy in the alley? And then it just kind of took off from there. And then I just started I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos. As you know, times have changed, right? When I don't know how old you are, but I just turned 40 this summer. And when I was a young coach, when I was with all those smart coaches, and your job was to hold the pencil and be quiet in the back of the room because you didn't know anything, that was me. I was all about writing everything down. And so I still have notebooks from like 1994, you know what I mean? For writing things down for people that I heard speak. And anyway, so what I started figuring out is now you can go online. Everything you need, especially during COVID, is online. You know what I mean? So you can learn to be a good football coach by seeing Nick Saban clinics, any kind of Nike clinics, anything online. So I started doing that. And then so I saw all those different defenses. I started taking RPO ideas, zone read ideas, different tags, and I just started, you draw them on paper first, right? And then you start kind of going out there and practice in the spring and trying some things out until the head coach gets pissed off and tells you to stop, right? And lets it work. And then you see what fits and what doesn't, and there you go. So that's kind of how I got to the shotgun part of it, because that duo deal, the tailback, you're right. He's supposed to read the Mike linebacker when he's downhill, and if that Mike feels, well, he's supposed to like bend. Well, when you're under center, and Coach Giannis taught me this, that running back, because sometimes he ends up hitting the back door. I mean, because maybe that extra overhang safety comes down and run support because he's really good, and yeah, the receiver's supposed to crack on him, but he sees him and he gets there where that running back is his running back, and he cuts it all the way back and there's nobody there. And so I just realized the duo could hit everywhere, but when you do start to read an RPO, it kind of puts a little constraint on where you can go because now the quarterbacks are running. You know what I mean? If he's in that triple option phase, you want to call it that. So it just kind of, you dabble with it. And I think oftentimes great football plays or ideas or concepts are created because people are desperate, right? Mm-hmm. Like you want to be good, you want to do something nobody else is doing, and you want to score points or you're going to get fired. And Texas especially, you're going to get fired. So, you just get desperate and you try these things. So that's how it happens.
All right, kind of piggybacking off that is, what were the common? Let me rephrase this. What were the most common things you saw defenses try to do to take away duo from you guys?
Well, they mostly try to load the box. That was their deal, to take away duo. They try to load the box because I think when you start a lot of spread guys, like I call Rich Hargett out and those guys. Although most of those guys on the SQA, on the surface to air, they're passing guys. They're air raid guys. They want to light it up. And I've just never been around quarterbacks that are that good. You know what I mean? I'll be honest. And every time I thought I had one, something happened. He got injured or he, flunked or something. So I was just like, okay, I want something that works for every quarterback and I can manipulate. So what ended up happening is when you bring all these guys in duo, like the more guys you bring in duo, the more, to me, gaps you end up. So if I'm not reading it and I'm just giving it off, then, okay, that guy can bang that A based on the mic. He can bend it or bounce it to the outside, or he can cut it back. Some people just go bang it, bend backside, or bounce it play side. And so I try to keep it with those three terms, and that's what ended up happening, create more gaps. But guess what? When you're facing a team like that Brennan High School team that I faced like 2016, well, they were better than us. So they're everywhere. You know what I mean? And so now you want to have to start reading. So if I'd known what I knew now, I'd be like, okay, why don't we read this guy or do an RPO, and then now we have a shot. Or we can, I don't even know if we had a matchup, so now we're looking for leverage, we're looking for grass, right? And that's kind of like what they did. They just bring more guys in the box. You can say they walk guys up in the box, like in the, when you're going to create a double team and it's established, the next thing you know, they walk a Mike linebacker in that A gap. Well, guess what? That was the guy that Gallup was going to pick up anyway, so now he's just off on him quicker.
Yeah.
Kind of takes care of it.
And then from an install perspective, what was the easiest thing about it to install? What were the common errors or issues that you dealt with installing Duo?
I'll be honest with you. I didn't have any. I like the fact that Duo was easy to install because I think, how you teach things, I learned this by watching YouTube clinics, teaching kind of like that whole deal. And so I taught them the concept first. So here's the concept. Here's what we want to do. We want to get double teams. That's what Duo does. That Duo 2-on-1. We want two guys on their one guy and that guy comes off late, if he comes off at all. And so once they understood that we're trying to get the double teams on the interior, okay, and then we take care of the C-gap with the exterior guys on the edge, the H-back tight end or the backside tackle, then it was Katie bar the door. So I think that it all depends on how anything really, but how you're going to explain it. And I will tell you this, like I think I saw his name on there, old Nick Cadutti. I don't know how to say his name, but old Nick, I talk to Nick all the time too. He's a great guy. I met him on Twitter a couple of years ago. But Nick and I have not talked about wide zone because he's really a big-time wide zone guru, and he had me sold on wide zone. But what I found out is wide zone is very expensive. You know what I mean? Like, you have to spend a lot of time on wide zone. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of intangibles. So if I'm going to be a zone guy, I would be a wide zone guy. Inside zone, wide zone. That's what I would run. That's it. But at the same time, if you're going to run duo, I can run power, I can run duo, you know, and I can run inside zone. You know what I'm saying? I like to stick to the rule of four. So four runs, and I want things that aren't expensive. And duo, to me, is not an expensive play to put in. It's very easy.
Well, I mean, obviously RPOs are some of your counter punches off of duo. What else? What else when they were overloaded for duo? What else would you run to kind of counter punch defenses off of it?
Well, I always have a rule, Coach. I mean, before RPOs, I think RPOs happen kind of on accident anyway, from what I've kind of studied. So you're running the play duo, and how I learned is, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I want to run duo. Here's the formation I want to line up in, but I'm watching film, and I've seen another formation that looks really good, or I run something similar. So I'm going to try to out-formation you. I'm going to try to add more guys on the line of scrimmage to make your front slide, right? Or I'm going to add guys on the perimeter to make your coverage slide roll, right? So that's kind of how you go anyway. And then after that, now I'm running duos, so what naturally happens? Well, guess what? I'm going to play action. And the thing about play action, also, you know, it's just like I have an old offensive line coach. He said, "Man, I tell you what, the only thing better than the power is the power pass," right? So that's what the power guys do. All those guys that love power, they're like power pass, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like duo, and then here came play action off the duo, and man, I'm telling you, it was wide open because you got to respect the fact you're looking at, you know, safeties read high hat, low hat on tackles, right? You know, linebackers are reading backfield floor, they're reading guards, right? And so you get two offensive linemen firing off and comboing, they're like, it's a run. And then now the quarterback sticks the ball in the belly, and then he pulls it out and throws the ball, you know, a slant, a post, or something else, a deep ball off of play action. It can be nasty, especially if you have a matchup problem, okay? And then after that became the next step. Well, now here come the RPOs, which to me is that cross part of a read or a play action pass. So that's kind of how it happened. Those are the ways you attack. I'm going to run the ball. I'm going to formation you, but I'm not going to put too much of my kids. I want to keep it simple. Then after that happens, I'm going to play action you. Then after that happens, okay, I'm going to start reading the guy so I can get numbers. And then after that, here comes the RPO to tie it all together. That's kind of how my mind works.
Have you ever used any motion as window dressing for it to kind of suck some kids in?
Absolutely use motion. But, you know, hey, I'm not going to lie. I know there's a lot of coaches out there in Texas. People think, oh, well, man, they don't even teach. I've heard that before. Man, do y'all even teach? Y'all just coach football all day. No, that's called a college coach. So I taught English, and there's sometimes, coach, where I'm just like the other coaches where there's just not enough time because to give these kids everything that you know. No matter how much film I give them, I tell them, get on huddle, watch this, do this, here's the motion. You know, sometimes motioning or shifting hurts me, right?
Yeah.
Then we get in the penalty situation. So I try to come up with a limited amount of motions that I feel comfortable with, and then you do that for window dressing. Always. I think that, you know, having like a shift, changing the snap count, changing the tempo, or using motion, those are all deception things that you can do within your system. So I try to utilize those as well.
Obviously, you're transitioning to defense. I'm sorry. Well, ironically, you're transitioning defense. I'm transitioning back to offense for the first time in like 7 years because I've been a defensive coordinator or defensive position coach for the past 7, pretty much exclusively. Outside, I mean, well, we'll get to your full transition in a minute. What were you studying on offense before you made that transition? What were you? I mean, you mentioned a little bit the surface to air stuff, but like more specifically, what were you studying and looking at, or who were you looking at?
You know, I mean, I was looking all over. Honestly, I mean, it's hard for me to always make a comparison to college. I'm not one of those guys. Hey, I'm going to jump on Madden or, you know, they don't make NCAA anymore, and I'm going to copy these plays. It wasn't that, but you know, every clinic I've been to where you have college coaches come speak, especially in Texas, they will compliment high school coaches because a lot of high school coaches are innovators, right? And so I get on your like channels like yours, I follow, I still I know some people don't like Ron McKee, I like watching him. Some of the stuff he has on there kind of does help me. There's other coaches I get on there and watch them. I stumbled on the Rich Hargett off of Glazier Clinic, So when you jump on those clinics, you run into high school coaches and college coaches all over the nation, and in some cases all over the world. And then you start going, okay, you got to know what kind of team you have, right? You know what I mean? So my whole thing and this happened when I was a young coach, is I want to have as much knowledge as I can, because if I know how to run a whole bunch of different offenses, I know how defenses work, how they're going to drop, how they're going to cover, how they're going to read. Well, then now I've got more things in my toolbox to go, okay, well, this is the kind of team I have. You know what I mean? Just like earlier, I think you were talking about, I just didn't have a team to run zone, right? Because I really feel like if you want an offensive inside zone team or a zone team, your offensive linemen have to be athletic. They have to be able to move. So if you don't have those type of guys, you can move your big guy. He's powerful, but he can't move. Well, guess what? He's not going to be a zone guy. And you can try to hammer a square peg in a round hole all day long, but I'm all about trying to make kids comfortable and play fast. So once I have this big old toolbox of all these different offensive run plays, right? And all these rules that go with these run plays versus these different looks and this big old vault on my Google Drive, right? But when I go to a team and I see the kind of kids and I evaluate what kind of kids I have, then I start selecting, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? And you kind of start taking pieces away just for that team that year. And so that's kind of how, to me, how you put it away. So I would watch college teams, high school teams, different coaches, and just kind of go from there. And of course, you like it to be coaches who have won. So when I heard about Duo and that coach, I mean, he won a state championship. They were runner-up the year before, and then they won one in 2017. And at that time, it was 2018. So I mean, he just won a state championship, had a big old ring on. I was like, wow, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of how it goes. You just kind of want to do what the winners are doing. And so, but my big fascination right now is I think that the RPO world is, to me, is like the double option and triple option anyway. But that is a deal where I think everybody's kind of going because, and it's a necessity, you have to, right? Unless you're just better than somebody and you can get there on the ball and pound them to death.
Okay, and then kind of last thing I got for you, how's the transition to defense been, and how has the years as an OC helped that transition?
Man, I tell you what, that's a great question because it's helped me a lot. I'm fortunate, and I took this job too, not just because of the teaching field, but I took the job because I knew the coach. He was the defensive coordinator at Mary Hardin-Baylor down here in Texas for a number of years, and his name is David Brandeis, and he's a fabulous defensive coach and a great mind. And so I remember trying to coach against him. I wasn't the offensive coordinator, but I was an assistant offensive coordinator, and they brought me in to help a younger guy. And we got into like an argument about what he was trying to do defensively. That's how much he confused people because they were dominating people. And they recently lost to Lake Travis before the state championship game. And Lake Travis down here in the state of Texas, their head coach, he's like the highest paid head coach in the state of Texas. Their assistants are the highest paid assistants. They got money out there. That's just like the program. Everybody's like, wow, I wish I could work there. But, more money, more problems too. So when I saw them play and I saw how they were dominating on film, and it just looked so complicated, and I kind of started figuring out what they were doing. So to have an offensive knowledge about here's what teams try to do and how I would game plan against your defense, and now to come here and see what they're doing and how they stop people, it's been great. And I think it's actually going to be a great opportunity for me to get better as an offensive coordinator because I hope overall I'll get back to that point, right? Being an offensive coordinator, getting back on the good side. But I'm going to take it as I'm going to be in a year-long clinic getting better and learning about what defenses are doing to stop offenses. And so now that I'm here, how they teach it is really kind of in ingenious way and for high school kids. And so I'm really admiring what I'm learning right now. So I'm being really humbled to learn, and so I'm kind of trying to take advantage of it.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it. I think you take your time out. Coaches, if you're interested in contacting Coach James, His contact information will be in the bio. Again, Coach, I appreciate it. And I wish you luck and safety this season. And same thing with your family, safety and luck. Thank you again, sir.
No problem, Coach. Anytime, man. Hit me up. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.